What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, I said yesterday that I would start to shift focus over to this Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars matchup that we have for Week 6, and that is exactly what I'm going to do today. I will be going over the team's records, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, some of the stats that both teams have put up, and just kind of compare the rosters and see, where the strengths for each team are, where the weaknesses for each teams are, how these two teams match up, and who I think is going to walk away with the victory in Week 6. Now, before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and it helps the channel out a lot and helps me push this content out to more Lions fans and more NFL fans such as yourselves. So if you could do that, I would be greatly appreciative for it. But with all that being said, let's get into talking about this matchup, this Week 6 preview, and talk about where the strengths and weaknesses lie for both NFL teams. Now, the Detroit Lions are currently a 1-3 football team. They are coming off a bye week, and they are coming off, before the bye week, obviously a very tough and embarrassing loss to a very depleted New Orleans Saints squad. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars are not much better than the Detroit Lions, as they are a 1-4 football team coming off a 32-14 loss to the Houston Texans. Now, looking at the passing game for both of these rosters. So far in the NFL season, Matthew Stafford has a 60% completion percentage, which isn't horrible, has thrown for 1,017 yards in the year, 8 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, which, if you look at those stats, isn't horrible, isn't a very bad stat line. You could watch the tape and say Matthew Stafford hasn't been his former self, but if you look at just the stats, so far Matthew Stafford is having a pretty good season for the Lions so far. Now, you look at those stats and you say, okay, 60% completion percentage, that's, kind of a little lower than you'd like to see, but Matthew Stafford's wide receivers have dropped 9% of the passes that have been thrown to them, which leads the NFL by a large margin. Like, the wide receivers for the Detroit Lions have dropped far more passes than anybody else in the NFL. So Matthew Stafford could have better numbers. Matthew Stafford could have more yards and a better completion percentage, but his team does lead the NFL in drops, so that is a stat I wanted to throw out there as well when talking about Stafford. You move over to Gardner Minshew with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and keep in mind he has played in one more game than Matthew Stafford, so the stats will look a little skewed, but I still think Minshew is having a better season so far, as Gardner Minshew has a 69.9% completion percentage, has thrown for 1,439 passing yards, 10 passing touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Again, he has played in one more game, but the odds of Matthew Stafford throwing for over 400 yards in the next game is very, very unlikely, and the odds of him getting his completion percentage to 69.9% in the next game is very unlikely. So I think Gardner Minshew has had a much more efficient season than Matthew Stafford. Obviously has a better completion percentage, obviously has more passing yards. I think Matthew Stafford is better with the touchdown to interception ratio. I do think, 8 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and then obviously Gardner Minshew has 10 to 4. But, I think that from that standpoint, they're pretty even. I think that Matthew Stafford it's very possible that he throws for 2 touchdowns and an interception in his 5th game, which, would be very even with Gardner Minshew. But so far this season, I actually do think Minshew is having a much more efficient season than Matthew Stafford. So I will give the passing game to the Jacksonville Jaguars as of right now. I think Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback, but looking at just the stats right now and looking at how Gardner Minshew has played throughout the first couple of games of the season, I think Minshew is a very good, very talented quarterback, and right now I think he is playing a little better than Matthew Stafford. Now, looking at this rushing attack for both teams, because this was kind of, I think, where a lot of the Detroit Lions struggles lie, not necessarily in the talent, but in the usage of the running backs. So in the 2020 NFL season, the Detroit Lions throughout the first 4 games have ran the ball 99 times on the season, have totaled 407 yards and 3 touchdowns while having 0 fumbles, and this was obviously led by the great Adrian Peterson being our lead back and having a majority of our yards and having 1 of those 3 touchdowns. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars on the 2020 season throughout 5 games have only ran the ball 107 times for 492 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, as a team, they do have 4 fumbles on the season. That rushing game is led by undrafted rookie actually, James Robinson, who has been very, very impressive throughout the NFL season so far and looks like a very, very good steal in UDFA and looks like a very capable running back to go forward with to go into the future with for the Jaguars. So that is good for him. I do think the Lions have a better running game. We have 8 less attempts, and I don't know if we're going to get 90 yards on 8 attempts, but I think that by the end of week 2 or by the end of week 6, I do think we get at least 90 rushing yards. I do think that we surpass the Jaguars in that category, and obviously we have not fumbled the ball yet. We have not put the ball on the ground as a team, and the Jaguars have done that 4 different times throughout 5 games. So I think the running game is kind of similar for the Detroit Lions and the Jaguars, but I do give the slight advantage to the Detroit Lions as they have had 1 less game. I think it's very realistic we get those 90 plus yards against the Jaguars as a team, and we haven't put the ball on the ground as much. So I do give the slight advantage to the Detroit Lions in this category. Looking at the defenses, specifically the pass defense, the Detroit Lions so far this season have actually had a decent passing defense, as throughout 4 games, they've only allowed a 63.5% completion percentage on opposing quarterbacks. They have only given up 939 yards in the air, 9 touchdowns, but they do have 4 interceptions on the season so far. Now looking at their pass rushing stats, they have 5 sacks on the season, 16 quarterback hits, and 16 tackles for loss. Again, we talked about it the other day. The Lions pass rushing defense, the Lions pass rush in general, is really, really bad. It's not very good. 5 sacks is one of the worst in the NFL. TFL is one of the worst in the NFL. Quarterback hits, one of the worst in the NFL. Our pass rush isn't very good, but so far, our secondary, for all the talent that we've added to it, has actually stepped up and improved mightily from last season. Now, taking a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars pass defense, this looks pretty ugly for the Jaguars, I'm not going to lie. So throughout 5 games, they have allowed a 75.8% completion percentage by opposing quarterbacks, which is far worse than the Lions. They have allowed 1,401 passing yards, 11 passing touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Looking at their pass rush, and I was actually surprised by this because I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars would have a good pass rush. They only have 5 sacks as well, like the Detroit Lions. They only have 23 quarterback hits, which is more than the Detroit Lions, but still isn't a lot. And they only have 15 tackles for loss on the season, which is less than the Lions. So the defense, at least especially the passing defense, the secondary, and the pass rush, is actually weaker by the Jaguars than the Detroit Lions. And I think this is a matchup that the Lions can take advantage of. I think this is a matchup that the Lions can, use Matthew Stafford, use his arm talent, and pass for a lot of yards, pass for a lot of touchdowns, and put up some big points in week 6. The Jaguars passing defense so far hasn't been very good, and I believe they just placed DJ Hayden, one of their starting cornerbacks, on injured reserve, so he will not be playing in that game either. I just think that there's a really good combination of factors. I think there's a good amount of factors that lead me to believe that Matthew Stafford and this wide receiving core can have a very good day in the air versus this very lackluster Jaguars passing defense. You look at that and you also say, okay, the Lions have a better pass defense, but if you also look at the teams that we've played, if you also look at the quarterbacks and offenses that we've played, the Detroit Lions have gone up against Mitch Trubisky, who put up a lot of yards for some reason, which is, really bad to say that he got all those yards, but the Detroit Lions have also gone up against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, who have put up over 40 points a game on the season. They've gone up against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, who have a very explosive offense, and they also last week went up against the Saints, who have a very good offense as well and put up a lot of points every single week, it seems like. So, it's not like the Lions have been playing weak opponents. It's not like the Detroit Lions have been playing, weak offenses. They've been playing some very, very good offenses, very explosive, very good offenses that put up a lot of points week in and week out. And, looking at those stats, knowing that we've played Aaron Rodgers in probably one of the best offenses in the NFL, we've played Kyler Murray in one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL with one of the most dynamic quarterbacks, and Drew Brees and the Saints, who, maybe aren't the most explosive offense, but have one of the best play callers in the NFL, have one of the best schemers in the NFL, and always seem to put up 30 plus points a game on their opponents. Those stats don't actually look too poor by the Lions. Now, in contrast to that, the Jacksonville Jaguars have played guys like Ryan Fitzmagic. They have played guys like Joe Burrow, who's in his rookie season, and Phillip Rivers, who is far out of his prime. So, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe, have given up worse stats than the Lions to much, much worse offenses. I mean, they gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards to Miami. They gave up a lot of stuff to Jacksonville, or to a lot of stuff in the Jacksonville versus Cincinnati matchup. They gave up a lot of yards and points against Phillip Rivers. I feel like the Lions have played tougher offenses. They've played tougher opponents. And, so far, they look like a much better pass defense, and they look like, definitely a better pass defense than the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think this one by a comfortable margin goes to the Detroit Lions. Now, looking at the rushing defense for both teams, the Detroit Lions so far in the 2020 season throughout 4 games have given up 681 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns, and 5.2 yards in attempt. And I don't think they have forced a fumble on a running back yet this season. So, that is unfortunate to see. The Jacksonville Jaguars, mind you, while playing in one more game than the Lions, have only allowed 683 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, while giving up on average 4.6 yards a carry. So the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is not a good rushing defense per se, but they are far better than the Detroit Lions. In one more game, and they've played a whole extra 60 minutes of football this season than the Detroit Lions, and they have only allowed 2 more rushing yards and 1 more rushing touchdown. This far and away goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Lions have a far better passing defense, but the Jacksonville Jaguars have a far better rush defense. And, I think that the Lions can still run the ball on this Jacksonville defense, but if you are comparing the two, Jacksonville has a much stronger and a much better a much better rushing defense than the Lions currently possess. So you look at that, the Lions have a better rushing attack and a better passing defense, but the Jacksonville Jaguars have a better passing attack and rushing defense. So who is the better team in this matchup? Who is going to come out on top? Who is going to be the better football team? Well, there's one more phase of the game that I have not mentioned quite yet, and that is the special teams unit for both teams. Now, we know how good the special teams unit is for the Detroit Lions, as Jack Fox on the season has punted 17 times for 908 yards with a long of 67, and he averages about 53.4 yards in attempt on punts. He's yet to have one blocked. He's by far the best punter in the NFL statistically. He won NFC Special Teams Player of the Month last month. He has been very, very good. He has been on fire and has been giving the Detroit Lions defense really good field position all season and making that special teams unit look absolutely elite. You also got Matt Prater, who is, of course, Matt Prater. He is 7 of 9 on field goals, and the only 2 field goals he missed was a 55-yarder in week 1 and a 50-something yarder in week 2. Both very tough field goals to make, and, the Packers one wouldn't have mattered anyway, and obviously the Bears one sucks. If we made that field goal, we probably win that game at the end of it. But again, it's a very tough field goal, and I don't necessarily hold that against Matt Prater. He's still 7 of 9 on the season, has only missed 2 field goals, both of them being 50+ yards. He's still automatic from he's still automatic pretty much from anywhere on the field, and Matt Prater is still one of the best kickers in the league. And then obviously we have Jamal Agnew, who on the season has had 2 punt returns for 35 yards and 7 kick returns for 192 yards. Hasn't necessarily had an explosive return just yet, but we all know it's coming. We all know he'll get at least 1 touchdown this season on either punt or kick returns. We all know he's going to get in the end zone at some point just because he's that explosive and he has that kind of explosive element and that kind of potential in his game. We all know how good the Detroit Lions special team is. We know that it's great. We know that they're one of the best in the NFL, and the Jags special teams has been okay throughout this season. I'm not going to say they've been great, and they have been far more lackluster than the Detroit Lions, but I'm not going to say they've been horrible. So far on the season, Logan Cook, the Jacksonville Jaguars punter, has had 13 punts on the season for 604 yards, a long of 63 yards, and averages 46.5 yards a punt. As I said, far worse than Jack Fox, far down the table, far down the leaderboard from the man at the top, Jack Fox, but still not a horrible punter, still not a horrible punting performance on this season. Now, their kicking as a team, because they have had 4 different kickers on the season so far because of injury and poor play by the replacements. As a team, they are 7 of 10 on field goals. As I said, they've had 4 different kickers on the season, so that, their rotation at kicker probably screws some guys up, probably screws up some stuff. And as a team, they haven't been horrible, 70% on their field goals, but, at the same time, they've missed more than Matt Prater, so I'm going to say Matt Prater's the better kicker there. And obviously the more consistent one, as he has kicked all the field goals for the Lions, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have had over 4 kickers try and attempt field goals for them. As a punt return, as a team, they have 2 punt returns on the season for 8 yards and 5 kick returns for 114 yards. Once again, worse than Jamal Agnew. So I would say the special teams definitely goes to the Detroit Lions. I think they're better at flipping field position. They're better at coverage. They're better at returning. They're more automatic on field goals. They're more, they're more reliable. I think they're a better special teams unit. So I will give that one to the Detroit Lions as well. So as a whole, I think the Detroit Lions Lions are the better football team. I think that Minshew is a great quarterback. I think he's a really, really efficient quarterback in the NFL, and I actually don't know if the opportunity arises if the Jaguars would take Trevor Lawrence, because I think Minshew is a very cheap quarterback. Obviously, I think he's a 6th round selection. He's a very cheap quarterback, and he's a very good quarterback. Minshew is not the problem in Jacksonville. So I think if the opportunity arises, I don't know for sure if the Jacksonville Jaguars would go with Trevor Lawrence at that point, because I think Minshew is that good. Obviously, the defense for both teams, they struggle in different areas, but I think that this game will be a fun one. I think there will be some points scored. I think there will be a lot of big plays on both the ground and the air for both teams. But at the end of the day, I do think that the Lions come out on top. I do think that they are a more complete roster. I do think that they have more talent. I think the special teams for both teams will play a factor in this game. I think that the Lions special teams will put them in very good situations to score. And I think that our special teams will also pin the Jaguars deep. And I think that we will make it, I think we will give the Jaguars very poor field position when it does come to starting their drives. So, with all that being said, those are kind of the stats, those are kind of the matchups, those are kind of the comparisons between the two teams. Now, a little bit more news about injury returns and stuff like that, because the Lions obviously have a lot of injuries. The Detroit Lions are eligible this week to return Justin Coleman, our starting slot cornerback, Joe Dull, our starting left guard, Mike Ford, a very good depth cornerback, and Bo Scarborough, a very good depth power running back. Now, I'm unsure who the Jags are eligible to return from injured reserve this week. However, the injury report, their injury reserve will be on the screen right now. None of these players to me really move the needle in this game. None of these players really, make me think that, oh, if this player comes back, we're screwed. If this player comes back, we're going to be in real trouble as a team. None of those players really make me think that, but, I'm not quite sure who's eligible. I'm not really sure who is eligible to come back this week, but, if any of those players come back, I'm not too worried about any of those players on injured reserve as of right now. So, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. As I said, I will be focusing more on the Jacksonville Jaguars and Detroit Lions matchup going forward. Today, I just wanted to go over the stats, kind of compare the two rosters, see where teams have the advantage, where one team has a disadvantage, and just kind of talk about who I think will win the game. As I said, I think the Lions do end up pulling this one out. I think that they have a better roster overall. I think that they have more talent, and I think with an extra week to prepare, I think that they will be more prepared than most weeks again for a Jacksonville team that is far weaker than the 4 previous teams that we have played. With all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Of an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If you are new to the channel, as I said, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It only takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so and helps me out tremendously. I would be greatly appreciative for it. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video letting everybody know. But if there is no Lions news, then that is all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Bye, guys.